India's healthcare sector is undergoing a major transformation, driven by rising incomes, preventive health awareness, and growing demand for affordable diagnostics. In this episode of Powered by India, we explore Thyrocare Technologies, one of India's leading diagnostic companies and a major beneficiary of the country's healthcare boom. We discuss its business model, competitive advantage, growth outlook, and why India Avenue identified it as a compelling long-term investment.
India is becoming one of the fastest growing economies on the planet, but most Australian investors have no clear way to access those insights. That's why we created Powered by India. India Insights for Australian Investors.
Hello and welcome to Powered by India, where we explore the companies and structural trends powering one of the world's fastest growing economies. I'm Aaron, and today we're going to be discussing Thyrocare Technologies, one of India's leading diagnostic healthcare companies and one of India Avenue's top 20 holdings. India Avenue first invested in Thyrocare in March 2023, and it has since become one of the strongest contributors to the fund's performance. Joining me today is India Avenue's CIO, Mugunthan Siva. Mugs, how are you?
Good, Aaron. Good to be here again.
Well, it's great to have you here. And let's just start with the obvious question. Why did India Avenue invest in Thyrocare?
Well, India Avenue as a business is committed to investing in India. And typically we like to own businesses which are of high quality. They have a long runway of growth. They have market leadership, a strong operating model that can generate cash. And there's a fundamental tailwind. And in this case, for this company, it's healthcare.
Right.
So we believe in 2023, the market was underestimating the potential of the company to execute through its new management. And we've seen over the last 3 years, whilst we've owned the company, that management has been able to execute. Earnings have grown, and the company has been, therefore, as you said, one of the strongest performing contributors in our fund over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And for someone, who's never really heard of the company before, what exactly does Thyrocare do?
Well, you can see from the visual, basically, if I was to describe it simply, there's the patient's demand for a test, which might be something to do with something cardiovascular, diabetes. They will have to go to a collection center, perform the test. And this is where Thyrocare comes in, because essentially someone has to do the analysis of the test. So it's one of India's largest diagnostic testing businesses. The company has built a highly automated central laboratory supported by thousands of collection centers across India. And this scale and the ability to process, therefore, millions of tests accurately and quickly at a very competitive cost is what drives the company.
Well, that's pretty interesting. And, talking about the company itself, how does Thyrocare actually, generate its revenue?
Well, again, when you look at the graphic, you could see that in its revenue mix, yes, Thyrocare is a routine pathology testing company, but it's also benefiting from increasing preventative healthcare packages, specialty diagnostics, B2B hospital and laboratory services. So, whilst routine pathology testing remains one of the core aspects of the business, the fast growing area is preventative healthcare. Increasingly, people are choosing to have annual health checks before problems arise. And that's an important shift because preventative healthcare tends to generate recurring demand. You're not just going to go in once and do a test and go, I'm never doing a test again. You're probably likely to go, okay, I feel happy knowing something has happened or something I need to take care of. So it creates recurring demand and increases the business's addressable market and opportunity to benefit from profitability over time.
Right. And, as you know, one of the themes of this podcast is to sort of understand why certain businesses are uniquely positioned to, benefit from India's growth. Why is Thyrocare such a good example of this?
Yeah. So, in a way, we've discussed the heart of the investment case for this company. Let's go back to first principles. India is becoming wealthier. We know that as it scales economically, GDP per capita will increase. It's not just about, population rate now, it's more about productivity. So as India becomes wealthier, you'll generally find what happens in most countries when that happens is people allocate more of their wallet to healthcare spend. Historically, India's healthcare has been reactive. I'm feeling unwell, I better go and get a test. Or I can afford to do this, so let me go and try that now. But in reality, preventative healthcare is about saying, I want to have regular checkups to find out if my health is okay, and if I can pick up something by checking for it early. So regular blood testing, employers in India are now encouraging it. Insurance firms are embedding it as part of their process. And whilst India, like most emerging countries, over time is starting to see an increase in high rates of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other lifestyle related issues, early diagnosis is therefore becoming more important. And diagnostics sits right in the center of this ecosystem. So Thyrocare, within all of this, has built something scalable with a great operating model, tremendous economies of scale. The more tested processes, the cheaper those tests are, the better value it is. And that creates a competitive advantage. No small company or laboratory can come in and offer the same competitiveness. So it's these sort of structural trends that we like getting behind and investing in early, because we want it to play out over multiple years rather than just a couple of quarters.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, in that case of talking about the future, how do you see Thyrocare sort of evolve over the next couple of years?
Well, yeah, look, again, as you can see from the visual, earnings outlook by broking analysts look quite positive. We've seen a management that can execute quite well. So if you pin those two together, a strong capability to execute and allocate capital and invest appropriately, and you've got this tailwind happening, then we should see earnings grow at a decent clip over the next few years. And at the end of the day, that's what drives share prices. So we think the company is well positioned for long-term success going forward.
Right. And my final question, if investors had to remember just one thing about Thyrocare, what should that be?
Well, you could simplify it and say Thyrocare is a pathology company, but it's actually a business benefiting from one of India's most powerful structural trends, the rising demand for quality healthcare. There are many trends like it. As you go through increases in wealth, your spending habits and power starts to change.
Right.
You will want new things. You will need new things, which you perhaps didn't think you needed before. Healthcare is definitely one of them. So this creates an environment for a scalable business, generating strong cash flow, leading market position, and it reflects exactly what we want to own in the India Avenue Equity Fund.
Right. Well, Mugs, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Aaron. It's always a pleasure to be on this podcast.
Yeah. And I hope you enjoyed listening to Powered by India, episode 3. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion on Thyrocare Technologies and how it's helping power India's healthcare transformation. Join us next time as we continue exploring the businesses and investments themes shaping India's future. Until then, thanks for listening.